Hi, welcome to Magic Lens Podcast. My name is Rhea, and I am your host. Today I am joined by my friend Grim. Grim, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Grim. You might know me on Twitter as Seraph Widower, and also a Tumblr sidewalk by the same name. And you might also know me as Ghastly Grimoire on Archive of Our Own. I wrote the Kratos fic perspective.
And speaking of Kratos fics, we're talking about Kratos today.
No.
No, you didn't read the title.
It's not like you invited me on here or anything.
Oh my god. Anyway, so Kratos Aurion. I don't know to pronounce his last name. Oh my god, fake fan.
Oh, me neither. I pronounce it Orion. Because
okay.
I guess, yeah, that's how I usually pronounce it. It might be different, though, but that's just what I look when I go see it.
Alright. So, one of the four, Karlan war heroes, so let's talk about him. Is there anything in particular you want to start off with?
Well, I want to start off with is that I know this is like an in defense of video, but I'm probably going to shatter it right now by saying Kratos did almost everything wrong, but that's why I love him, and I will go on to explain why. Like, why he's so compelling to me.
Okay.
And starting off with the Karlan War is that one thing is that I remember reading about when I finished Symphonia, and I was going through going through the lore, and one thing that really stuck with me was, you know how up in Darius Karlan, you go through these computers, right?
Yeah.
And it's talking about that war and the Magi technology and how they were like, we can never have this happen again. And I remember looking at it and it was like, then I don't think I knew the depth of Kratos' involvement. But I'm just kind of jumbled, but like it just clicked for me because it's like, oh, okay, I can, like, to me it kind of understood that. Now looking back on it, I can see why Kratos was probably hesitant to say anything about Mythos' plan, because they were born into like, it was like 1,000 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was about not like entirely sure on the timeline, but yeah.
And, so, yeah, about, like, I know it was, like, 1,000 years, and they were born into that. Like, it was ingrained around them, and they may have even, like, forgotten why they were fighting that war. And it's just, like, and thinking about it, and it was, like, they all probably really remember vividly about everything in the war, about, like, food shortages, about how brutal it was, about how there's, like, no safe places to really be, especially for his half-elf companions, and it's like, oh, okay, and I can see it, and that's not, like, getting into his, relationship with the other Karlan war heroes. Like, they were obviously pretty close. I mean, you fight in a war together, you're pretty much gonna be, like, set together,
definitely.
You know? So, and also in one of the, it was Tales of Phantoms Volume 2, and Kratos' storyline, there was a point where you can go to pick Martel to go with him to pick these flowers to help with the local fever, and there she asks him, "Hey, I know that," and she's like, "Hey, I know Mythos isn't that well. He's not that popular with kids his age." She asked him, "Could you watch over him for me?" And Kratos said, "Yeah, of course I will." And then that kind of takes on like a whole new meaning when you realize what happens, not immediately, but afterwards.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's just that at his heart, Kratos is a knight who doesn't want to break his vows, but he has to. He doesn't want to choose between family, but he has to, because the boy he used to call his family, he doesn't know who that is anymore. He's completely alienated by him.
Definitely, yeah.
And there was definitely, like, in that point, it was like Mythos was willing to, have all these people killed just to revive his sister. And I think it was something in a side story. I don't know where it's from, but I remember seeing it translated. He's telling Ewan in one of the side interiors was like, there are more we have created more victims than there were in the Karlan War or Stars in the Sky. Either way, it was like, wow, that, like, about how intense that was.
Yeah.
And there is, like, also, one thing, and then this kind of jumping around, is that I know a lot of people, myself included, are kind of miffed that he goes off on Darth Karlan at the end. It's like, okay, now you know who I am, but bye. And yeah, Russ was like, no, come down here. It's like, go bond with your son or something. But I understand why he did it, and I commend him, even if I think, like, for his mental health, that probably wasn't the best move.
No, it definitely wasn't.
So, I mean, think about it. He was surrounded by people who are just coming to after spending who knows how long as, like, the numb angels. And they just know him as Lord Kratos, if they know him at all, so they're going to keep their distance from him.
Yeah.
So, because the thing is, if you look at the story, at least it feels to me, he's still, like, no matter what he does, and he even admits himself, was that he was playing both sides without picking a path.
Because he didn't want to make a mistake, because he didn't think he could make a mistake, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And so he was just like, I've known Mythos for 400 years, no, 4,000 years. I get my numbers mixed up.
It's okay.
So, it's like, okay, so Mythos, this boy he's known for 4,000 years, or Lloyd, who he had thought had died and hasn't known for a year. It's definitely like, which one could he pick? I mean, that he's like being forced to pick between two family members, and that definitely wasn't easy. And so, and even when he's helping Lloyd, he's not doing it very brazenly. He's like trying to keep it secret, so Mythos doesn't find out. And so even then he doesn't even tell them anything, especially when they meet at the village, and Lloyd's like, why are you helping us? And he just walks away. So, like, that was kind of like his way, you know, he always had his foot, he has his foot in the door, but it's always out too.
Yeah.
And him going off on Darth Karlan was his way of, like, I'm making this choice for myself, this cannot be reversed, and, like, basically he isn't giving himself an out, which I think is fascinating. I think is very fitting for his character arc for someone who was flip-flopping between the two.
Definitely. Also, I feel like it's because Lloyd was saying, well, if you hear about this now and you know now you've been living your life without making a mistake or thinking that you are incapable of making mistakes, then why can't you live now in a way that's much better for you? And I feel like him going out to Darth Karlan would be like him realizing that this entire thing was a mistake and nice to rectify it.
Yeah, that's definitely what he was doing, because I think there was something in one of the side materials, and where he's like, it was at the near where Mythos was starting to implement the human ranches, and I saw, and it was a post by Taleslations, a wonderful blog, by the way, and they have this post for Kratos, which is very thorough, and I've definitely used it when writing my own fanfiction for him. So, he said at one point, it's like, when Mythos suggested the human ranches, it's like, that's when I should have left. But he hung on, because it's definitely like, he wasn't about to throw, like, it's like he literally went through war with this kid, and he was asked to look after him. So of course abandoning him now would just be like it would be like another nail in the coffin for Mythos. And he's like, definitely, like, he's already been abandoned. Like, why do I want? Is this going to be the one that really breaks his heart, you know?
Yeah, especially since Mythos was already betrayed. Since I was reading the wiki, and it seems like it's inconsistent between the anime and side materials, but apparently they were traveling with another human for a little bit, like a shorter period of time than the four of them were traveling for, and that human was the one who killed Martel. So it was obviously betrayal on Mythos' part, because back then Mythos was easily trusting, and then he just kind of grew cold.
And there's also that, not just that, and about the human that betrayed them. I had this response in my head and I just completely lost it. Let me try and regain it again.
All right.
Oh yeah, and one thing I can remember now. What I was going to say is one thing I thought was really interesting and likely unintentional, intentional, is that they never say the name of it. They never give any description of the human traitor, which I think is really, like, I, as a writer, that's like as someone who's worked on both original and fan stuff, for me, like, to do that, that's be like, oh, that's one less thing for me to worry about. Goodbye. Um,
Yeah.
but when you're looking at it from a fan, I'm going to ascribe meaning to this, even if there isn't any. It's that they don't like, he's like, Mythos doesn't may not even really remember the human that killed. Like, they may not even really remember the human. What they remember is what they did, and what they did was kill Martel, and it just all went to hell.
Yeah. Because there's no real reason to remember that human. That human was a traitor, and anyone who defies. Well, obviously, creatures wasn't formed back then, but it was a similar mentality of anyone who betrays is not worth being remembered.
And there is, like, I think they immediately killed them after, because I remember there was one scene where he's like, where Lloyd, and it's in the game, and it's late game, he's in Carl, and he's in a memory with Kratos and Ewan, and Martel is on the ground, and Mythos is like hovering over her, and one of them was like, "You bastard! Why would you do this?" And like draw the and Kratos drawing his sword, and like, no, and Lloyd's like, wait, no, and then but then it's like realize, oh, it's a memory. It's not me. He's about to run through.
Yeah.
And that just like I said, I know that's probably like one less thing to worry about. But like thinking about the impact of it fascinates. And there is also one thing, another thing is that his relationship with and like, I know you don't want to go into in ships, but it is canon. It kind of affects his character.
No, a canon ship is fine. Don't worry.
Okay, so the thing with being immortal for like 4,000 years, like, to put that in perspective, in our current calendar, Amino Deus, no, Anno Deus, and it was the year of our Lord.
Yeah.
We have 2,000 years. And that is like, post the rise of Christianity and all that, but that's 2,000 years of like history that we know, and we just enter 2,000 of that calendar. So this, like, they are older than our current calendar, if that makes sense.
Yeah. They.
So what I'm
Yeah.
so basically, like, they are beyond, like, they are obviously beyond 2,000 years old. And when you're 2,000 years old and you're looking down at the earth from above, people, like, above, and you're surrounded by the same people for 4,000 years, the people below you don't look like people anymore. They just look like ants, and they may as well have been, because I'm just kind of imagining it, like, them hovering in the sky, and, like, because, it's Darius Carlon. So, like, and there's also that sense of, if you're going to, like, when you're in war, you have to close yourself off if you're going to be a soldier.
Yeah.
And Kratos has been a soldier for thousands of years, and it's taken a toll on him. And it's like very obvious, at least to me, that he's been a soldier for so long he doesn't know how to get out of it. And he's also been with this person for 4,000 years. So looking down at these people for like 4,000 years, they don't look like people, they just look like ants, and it's like, well, why should I care about them? But there is kind of like that thing in the back, it's like, well, you were once one of them, weren't you?
Yeah.
And so what came to a point, and this is from Kratos' novel, I believe, is when I think Colette's grandmother got killed. And Mythos came in and said, well, that's going to be a pain to clean up. And it was just like, what happened was like, it was a bloodbath. And
Oh.
so, and this is 70, 80 years before the game. And Kratos saw that and it was like, who is this? Like, this isn't the Mythos I know. And this is when he leaves. And it's years later, obviously, that he meets Anna, and I think walking among them for 80, 70, like those decades, that would definitely have, like, humanized these people he was watching, um, well, to some extent.
Yeah, like,
To him,
not fully, since it's still contradicting that 4,000 ish years that he was just up there, but it's enough to make him feel something for them.
yeah, and it's like, but there is also, um, wait, I'm gonna touch on that later. Let me finish this thought I have
Yeah,
now.
totally.
And so what I'm saying is that Anna was his tether to the modern world. Lloyd was his tether to the modern world. And they were able to, like, re-anchor him and make him, like, okay, so maybe, oh, maybe I have this chance to make everything right. Maybe I have everything to put this chance behind me. And then it goes terribly, terribly wrong. And so another thing to keep in mind is like how much Lloyd, Anna and Lloyd's supposed death would take a toll on him. He was already planning to sacrifice himself so they could live on without him, because like he knew, was like, oh, this isn't my time anymore. I'm the seal for Origin. Someone needs to break the seal if someone's going to get rid of Crucius. I
Yeah.
have to do this to make them happy. And he didn't tell Anna. He only told Ewan. But before, or maybe just as kind of blurry, he's going to enact his plan. That's when he caught wind of like, oh, they're in trouble. And so, like, I do remember writing this one fic, and it's probably lost now. But one thing I remember is like he was, because I was thinking about like, wow, how shocking that must have been to have this plan all built up in your head, and like, and going there and realizing, and sitting there and thinking, one thing that I kept repeating over and over was, it should have been me,
Yeah.
because that he wanted it to be him, but instead these two people who have already gone so much, and he actually added to that pain, which, I mean, Kratos is basically all aboard the Kratos Aurion Guild Express. So he's already feeling guilty for pretty much everything. Like, that would have definitely added on to it. And in the drama CD, it's one of them. I can't remember which one. Ewan sees him, and Kratos just lashes out at him, and Ewan looks at him and says, "You're not worth killing. You're already dead." So, and that is when he went up to Crucius, and that's when he was like, going through everything, like going through the motions numbly, like, and there was another thing I wanted to point out, and this is, I saw this as a Tumblr post or Twitter. It was another post. It was like, to compare for Kratos, because Kratos has been alive for so long, to him, Anna and Lloyd's death were yesterday, because what's 17 years to a man who has lived
Yeah,
several
definitely.
17 years? So that wound, like, I'm just like, can you imagine going down to get this chosen, that Mythos is like telling us, like, yes, this is the one that revived Martel, and you're like, okay, fine. And he goes down there, and then he sees this boy he sees himself in him, and he sees the woman that he loved in him, and he's like, hang on a second. And then the kid introduces himself as Lloyd. So can you, like, I just, in my head, that's like two punches right there.
And
Like,
sorry.
that was
Sorry about
it
that.
was definitely like a, not even like a punch, like more like both of them like to his face.
Yeah.
Because in my head, because like, he's probably been numb for so long, and then he sees, oh, the kid that I thought was dead is back, and like, and then it's like, oh no, it's very much like a jolt of, oh no, I have to, okay, I have to make things right. Hang on.
And to
And the
get
rest of the game is him scrambling
Yeah,
to try and make
definitely.
amends.
And the fact that he got confirmed for himself, not because Lord Irving was his name, but because Anna's grave was at Dirk's house.
Oh, I'm like replaying it. like even from the beginning, before I knew all the plot twists, when I was watching it as a Let's Play for the first time, I thought that Kratos had something to do with Lloyd, because because he reacted strangely to Anna, who would get really, like, you wouldn't get really heated if you met someone who hurt a stranger, because I mean it's like, yeah, it sucks that they were hurt, but it's like you don't feel anything personal. But
Definitely,
Kratos
yeah.
is also so stoic that him suddenly like getting really incensed when Anna is brought up definitely had me like, oh, what's going on here? And was definitely kind of like, jotting it away. And at her grave, and it's just that like also like a double punch for him, because it's like one, how sitting there, it's like he still must have felt that immense guilt. Like again, it should have been
Yeah.
me. And I know that's kind of like, yeah, and I am kind of implying that Kratos is somewhat suicidal, but I'm not going to veer too far into that. So, and it's like, but I also can't help but wonder if like him seeing like Anna's grave and seeing Lloyd and seeing Lloyd's like idealistic like Anna, but also not like her because he barely knew her, like that must have helped him like snap out of it.
Yeah.
And so um and going beyond that, there was also like he's lost in time basically. This is a man who's a bygone of eras gone by, and Crucius would have made it. Like they were controlling the societies pretty neatly, right? So
Yeah.
they couldn't develop too far and develop magic technology, but they couldn't go too far, like develop entirely new languages or entirely new currencies either. So they were kind of keeping them on this, if you think about it, pretty tight path.
Yeah.
So so he was living in a time where Silverant and Tetheala were like they were bitter enemies, and and if this was a general symphonia, I would go more into about Dawn of the New World and some issues I have with it, but I'm not going to go there. um, so like he was bitter enemies, so it had and also he was walking a world that was whole, like that must be pretty jarring in of itself to like visit the land that you come from. He came from Tetheala. I've seen like some people say, oh, he came from Meltokyo, or what was Meltokyo or something like that. So it's what he was, like he was one of the knights, I think, in the king's
Yeah, he was. That's
personal
how
guard.
they got
Yeah.
him to talk to the king. Yeah, the king like, didn't care for him and kind of shunned him, I think.
Yes, because he shunned him because he was trying to help half elves.
Yeah.
And as it's established, half elves were like really really discriminated against. And there is also, I'm stuck in time. So this world that he's been controlling and watching over, I use that term very loosely because the only watching over he did was really going down to protect the Chosens.
Yeah.
And so he's been more familiar with the world that was broken in half than the world he was born in and grew up on. So there is also imagine like walking through places and being like, hey, wasn't this like such and such? And it feels so wrong to see it as something else, you know? Like it's like going by like what used to be like your favorite pizza shop and then going by and it's like it's either like nothing there or it's a completely different shop, and it's like, I don't know if I like that.
Yeah, I
And it's
know
just
that
like that
feeling.
passage of time. It has marched on for Silverant and Tetheala. It has marched on for every single person but the four Seraphim and the higher ups of Crucius.
Especially since they just don't know to move on. They think what they're doing is right and they should continue going because, once again, they are incapable of making mistakes.
Yes, and there was also so he's basically lost in time. Like it bears the same name as the country grew up. It's the world he grew up in, but it's also not. It sometimes has some of it, but not all of it. So, like, he's already going to be feeling pretty distant, and that would also make it easier for him to, be able to stomach, like, being a part of the organization that made the human ranches and is running them.
Yeah.
So he's disconnected, and much like Persea, he's lost in time. And so what has happened is he was basically catapulted in a time that's not his. And again, I think this in a drama CD was like he's telling you, and we've lived too long. Like this isn't our world anymore. It's theirs, and it should have been theirs for a long time. But none of them could let go because Kratos. I believe, I think everyone, when Martel died, as horribly as she did, I think they all was like, and when they found out there's a way to save her, they were like, of course, let's do it, because even though, like, they were in the middle of a war, that was Martel. Like, Martel was, like, the heart of the group. She was their shining beacon.
Yeah.
Like, people can, like, point to Mythos all he want, that he was the one, but no. He got that from Martel. And, everything was riding on Martel. And they were lucky, and I put that in hypothesis, that they were lucky that they had a possibility to revive her. But it was never, like, right. And so I think they were like, okay, this is completely justified, right? I mean, we want to bring her back. I mean, she would be so much... She needs to see this world that she helped create and all that,
Definitely.
But then... But there's definitely, like, a bittersweetness when, like, you realize they have lived longer without Martel than they have with her.
Yeah.
They have spent, like, years trying to bring her back, but she is already, like, so far gone in their past that, like, it's even Martel, even though she had, like, the perfect host and everything, she's used the opportunity to tell Mythos, what you have done is wrong. And that's like, this is like the exact opposite of what I wanted. And so, which of course Mythos doesn't take well. And it's just that, like, definitely them trying to revive Martel was definitely incredibly selfish, because they wanted, like, I know this sounds very cruel, but they wanted Martel back, not because she was Martel, but because of what they meant for her.
Yeah.
Not for them. Because, like, when you're grieving over someone, you're grieving over what that person meant to you.
Yeah, definitely.
And it is selfish. I'm not saying selfishness is bad, but it's like, it is based on your own whims and your own emotions and desires.
Plus the whole...
And...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, plus the whole idea of reviving Martel in the first place is a very idea that you get simply because you can't handle the fact that your loved one's gone. But to hold on
Absolutely,
to it
yeah.
for so long is simply holding on to the fact that you can't bear to live with the reality that they're gone, and you just don't want to change.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another thing that definitely comes into play with Kratos. Is like, he's changing, but he's changed. First, he was all in with Anna, but when Anna died, and it basically was like smacking that, it's like, okay, that part of the reason they died was because of me. Like, he basically put Anna in that ranch, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So of course he was like, he definitely realized he can't run from what he did, and he can't like, stop it, and that's when he, like, resigned himself to his fate. And there is also, like, sometimes I, like, wonder if, like, because, adults that are more used to, like, I say adults like I'm not 21, but I mean, like, but when you, like, reach, especially when you're in a war, and war will take a toll on everyone in a war zone. And so, like, they were already likely accustomed with death. Like, they probably had a couple of relatives close to them die already. Mythos, the only person close to him that died was Martel, because Martel was his mother. She was everything to him. So I cannot but wonder if, like, in the beginning they were like, I actually kind of don't want, like, they were like, oh, well, I kind of don't want to revive her, but I mean, it would do so great, but Mythos really wants it. And then eventually they were like, yeah, okay, let's get her back, especially in a war zone where, like, so many other people didn't have that chance to get their loved ones back.
Yeah,
Which is also kind of like, also brings in about how arrogant at least Mythos must have gotten, because it must have rubbed off on the other ones to
definitely.
keep going along with it, you know? Like, I'm a part of the heroes, like, this kid, like, split the world in two, so of course they would, like, get, like, okay, so we're not like everyone else, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not, I know this is talk about Kratos, but I'm reading, anyway. So, so I mean, Mythos' mental state, not entirely, but after a while, like, being around that person as your main source of companionship and all that, that will eventually rub off on you, and it's
It
going
would.
to affect you, and it's usually not pretty. And, so they were like, basically they were going along with it. I was like, yeah, like I said, um, I'm talking in circles. So yeah, it's cannot but wonder, and I would actually, and just throw it on top of all these fics I want to write about, like, Kratos' like hesitation, like, all their hesitation at the beginning when Mythos was like, we can do it, we can revive Martel, and this is coming from a kid who just ended the Civil War, and so, yeah.
You trust them.
And, um, there is also that, um, there was another thing I wanted to touch upon. I cannot remember. It was, I know I said along the lines of, Kratos has been a knight for a very long time, and that's definitely how he, like, approaches his relationships. If you look at Anna, he was like Anna's bodyguard.
Yeah.
Not exact just her husband, more like her bodyguard than anything else. With the Chosen, he was the bodyguard. And even with Lloyd, when he talks to him, he's like, I can't be the one to protect you. Like, you have to learn how to protect yourself. And it's basically him trying to toughen Lloyd up, because, like, he tried once before to protect Lloyd, and he thought it failed, but he's getting a second chance. But look at how well the first chance
Yeah.
panned out. So, like, there's definitely, like, he's trying to, like, protect him the best way he knows how, and that is to teach him how to protect himself and his loved ones. And, and one thing that I also was thinking about when I was writing that fic I mentioned a while back was that how shocking must it have been to hear Lloyd say no one should sacrifice themselves, for Kratos to hear this when he was intending to sacrifice himself for his family. So, I
Honestly,
mean,
yeah, I can't tell you the answer to that because it must have been just, first of all, hearing that from your own child saying that no one should sacrifice themselves, and knowing it means you, but he doesn't know what you wanted to do for him. That must have been insane.
yeah, and it must have been, like, and definitely, like, another reckoning of Kratos was like, oh god, what have I done? Which is pretty much driving Kratos at this point. Like, he's alive from his own guilt and self-hatred.
Yeah.
And so, like, to hear that, that must have been like like a gut punch, because it's like, he was convinced if he gave himself up so the worlds could be joined and they could live a happier life, it would be happier because it was without him. But to hear his own son say it, and it's not him, but it is him, it is aimed at him, must have been like, definitely, like, just one more reckoning Kratos has had to deal with throughout the entire plot onto that
Yeah.
pile. And, I'm so sorry. My thoughts are so, like, they don't stick around for very long.
It's
It's
fine.
in and out with them. And, um, and another thing was like, because, you know, he was basically one of the four Seraphim. Like, did the Grand Cardinals know the Seraphim, like I know they knew Mythos at least as Lord Yggdrasil, but did they know the other ones? And so there's also that thing of like, was Kratos like glaring at Kavar for that time, or was he just so full of self-loathing and guilt that he just couldn't, like didn't even really feel anything? That's like another thing that's I've pondered about.
I feel like
My
oh, sorry, you can go ahead.
what I was gonna say is like mostly he was probably numb to it because I
yeah,
mean like
that's what I was gonna say too.
numb to it, but it's just that there was something I really wanted to bring up and I cannot remember what it was. I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
I should have written it. I should have written all this down.
I do have something I want to bring up though, as
yeah.
well, as of recording this, we have recorded in defense of Zealous Wilder, who we were talking about how he also has the similar ideas of it should have been me, since he, it shouldn't have been him, because he should have been the one who was, he shouldn't have been the chosen. He should have died. He should have been able to pass on his chosen status to Celeste. And his entire life, he was just thinking, well, if his mother hadn't died and it happened to him instead, then life would have been better, and it would have been better had he not existed. So I find it interesting that Kratos has his own, not companion, since he doesn't really talk to Zealous that much, but someone else who's able to feel that same suffering as him. And it's not exactly the same, but it's similar.
I completely forgot about Zealous. Whoops. That's a really good point. Zealous is somewhat parallel to Kratos, and I think it's either fan or canon that part of the reason Zealous doesn't like Kratos is because he reminds him of himself. And I do look, I'm a big fan of Kratos, but he's a screw up.
He is.
He's made so many mistakes. And I do appreciate Zealous Wilder calling him out. It's yeah, you were this isn't right for you to dump it on your kid. And even though Lloyd has no problem with it, it should have never been Lloyd's burden in the first place.
Definitely.
And what better person to tell him that than someone has the burden of being the chosen already on him, and it's been so tough for him.
Especially since it was Kratos who helped me that system that caused Zealous' suffering in the first place.
And, well, I'm just so embarrassed I completely forgot about Zealous. I was they are parallels. They're both the magic swordsmen.
Yeah.
They both got red hair. And
they can both heal you instead of rain.
Yeah. And,
they're both tied to each other in their routes. If you choose Kratos, Zealous dies.
Yeah. And, which is another thing that I think is, interesting, is how in Kratos' route, Zealous is, it's only in Kratos' route that Zealous dies. When it was originally intended, all but Zealous' route, he would have died. Because it really, because it must be, pretty gut-wrenching to see, someone that, Zealous is already really on the fence with everybody, right?
Yeah.
He's charming, he's over playful, and he's, acting over familiar with everyone, kind of that gain their trust, but he doesn't feel what he's putting out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just a ploy. And so, he wants their trust, and they usually give it to him unless it's Kratos. And so, there was basically what I was saying was it had to have stung a little bit to see this guy who's made you because Lloyd's idealism rose off on everybody.
Yeah.
And it's well established. To see someone that is oh, I want to change this system, siding with the very person who made it. And even if that person is trying to now undo it, that must have not, that must have been ow. Well, fuck me, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
And, and the thing, I went, at the beginning I said how what's so compelling to me about Kratos about how he's so, great, and it's because he's such a screw up is that makes him so interesting to me, because it's like this is not like a dig against Hollywood. It's just like my own personal taste. I'm really big into like I love me some good angst, and one thing with Kratos is like, oh, there's just so much of it, but there's also like that kind of moral quandary, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like
There is kind of like that, like, okay, look, I really like this um character, but also he's such a big screw up, and it also something that I would like to see reflected more in Kratos stuff is that I've only seen it done in a few times. Is that her like looking at Kratos and being like, I don't know how to feel about this man. Like, yes, he saved her, but he did also put her there. Yes, he's undoing it, but he shouldn't have done it in the first place. It's like that whole going back and forth.
yeah,
And it's that and like, and also with Kratos, it's just like there's so much there, but also in thinking about it, it's like these characters have lived for a really long time, but if you really sit down and think about it, there's they don't have not a lot happened in those 4,000 years.
no,
Like,
it was a lot of just suffering, but it was just a lot of just things that nothing really eventful happened. Eventually, everything just melted together that you can't really point out what suffering was excruciatingly so.
and yeah, and it's just like it was kind of like they're trying to keep a balance, like they're trying to get not necessarily keeping it fair, because it's not fair. They've established that at the very beginning, because if one has to flourish, then one has to suffer, and so like they're already at this point, like but so ingrained in their head. I was like, if it's not like in their head, because I mean they were basically raised in a big war, was that if it's not me, it's going to be someone else, or rather
Yeah,
it be someone else than me, which is a very cruel way of thinking, but it's that kind of thinking you develop when you're in such a high stress situation and you are under pressure to preserve yourself.
definitely.
And there is that again, there was another thought that popped in my head that I cannot remember. I am so sorry, Rio.
You're fine. Trust me, it takes
And
a bit to get used to it.
yeah, like I thought, because it's like, oh, it's like, yeah, I'm a huge Kratos fan. It'll just come out naturally to me, and then it's like, oh wait, there's so much more here. Oh wait, and following like different lines of thinking.
To be fair,
And
Kratos is a huge character to take on.
yes, exactly. And and one thing that I am also fond of is alternate universes and how that would still affect him. But I'm not going to get much into that here, because we would be here for, I assure you, we'd be here for a very long time if we went to all of my alternate universes and why I made these choices and why I think it's a good parallel to Kratos. So, there is also, like, going back to that whole, oh, he's a knight. Like, a lot of people, when they associate, like, fatherhood, they associate, oh, like, your protectors, I want to keep you safe. And so Kratos is like, you see, one thing that I thought was really sweet was that him being, there was one skit, a couple of skits where he is being kind of like fatherly to Colette, and and there's one where he's like, oh, you can't sleep, Chosen, and she's like, no, and he's like, well, why don't you try counting the stars? There's more stars there you can never count in your lifetime. And there's also like one where he was, eating somewhere for food and it was too spicy and he spat it and he was, and it doesn't sit well, and he tells her it's a little spicy, and then she kind of deflates, and he's like, oh, and it's like, oh, my taste is like my sense of taste is, and then he realizes, oh crap, she's losing her sense of taste, and he's like, oh no, it's all right, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And there is also, leading into the skits, usually Kratos doesn't really like say much about himself, but there was one skit when I'm currently replaying Symphonia, doing Kratos' route, So there was one skit where they were like calling Kratos a teacher, and like usually in skits he's kind of like sitting there and kind of like he throws in his 2 cents every so often, but
Yeah.
mostly he's watching, silent. But then they say, "Wow, like I can't remember what the skit, but basically they were calling Kratos a teacher, and Kratos immediately like it's like no 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 don't call me a teacher. That's not who I am." And it's like immediately like he was handed this title and he's trying to like give it back.
Yeah.
And so, which is really interesting because then he got really because then they were basic like he keeps it hidden for the most part, but what they didn't know was that they were like getting really close to an insecurity and a regret of his, and the more regretful side of him just kind of pops out and is trying to make amends for it.
Yeah.
And there is also like personally I think the angelic language was Latin, but that's because I'm a huge nerd. Because I mean Kratos, like that's a it's not a name of a Roman god, it's the name of a Greek god, but still, but I'm such a nerd that I'm tickled with the idea of the angelic language being like Latin, especially when in Christianity they use a type of Latin called a classical. I think I'm pronouncing that right, Latin, but mostly because I like Latin. I'm a big sucker for the classics and all that. So there is that. Also, one thing. Oh yeah. Speaking of being a fatherhood, there was like, Kratos was not at all happy to see Remiel pretending to be Colette's father.
No,
and that was established in a side material. And it's like another. I keep going back to Kratos is getting punched in the face, emotionally. And it's like, I'm going back to that because it happens so many times in Symphonia that he's basically Kratos' subplot is basically Kratos' own personal reckoning and oh god, oh dear god, what have I done? And so like he took his role of a father like seriously enough that he like kind of seriously enough that he thought that in his mind protecting his family was the number one priority, but then Remiel uses it to further to play a role in Colette's destruction, and like that must have been like really incensing to see, like how dare you. I was like he's like I tried my best to be a dad, but then you come back and you're like you're spitting in the name of fatherhood or something.
Yeah.
So I think in the OVA, I don't know if it's been a while since I watched and admittedly have not finished it. There is this one scene where they're like going up to the tower. It's Ewan, I think, going up to the Tower of Salvation, and he goes there and he finds like Remiel's dead. And sometimes I wonder if like I know in the game they were the one, like the party was the one to bring him down, but I can't help but wonder in the OVA if they intended it, and like I said, they probably did. I can't help but wonder if Kratos was the one who did him in, because in the game when Remiel's pleading for his mercy, he just kind of goes, no. Or like it's like, oh, like that meme I posted a couple years back was that it's like Remiel's like, oh help me Lord Kratos, I'll do anything, and Kratos is like, anything? And he's like, yes Lord Kratos, and Kratos looks at him and goes, then perish.
Oh my god.
And I bring that up because people have found it and they're reblogging it and I don't know how to feel.
But it's the truth.
And so yeah, that's basically what he did. Like and it also goes to show another pop in my head. Kratos is someone who takes his word very seriously. Like he doesn't do willy-nilly promises. When he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it, and it stings all the more when he can't fulfill them.
Yeah.
He was supposed to watch over Mythos. That failed horribly. He was supposed to protect his family. That failed horribly. And I swear there was a third thing.
I guess technically protecting the chosen.
Maybe to some extent, I should have kept. Maybe like I should have been more careful leading up to Martel's death.
Yeah.
Like, and this is just dawning on me now. Like I can't, but maybe like is likely, given how Kratos' personality is, that he does feel somehow responsible for Martel's death in some extent too.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there was someone among them that was someone they trusted, and if he was better at being, like, if only he was better, if only he was such and such, he could have stopped it, but he didn't, and that would definitely, that's a knight who, like, and knights protect their charges, that had to have been, like, again, I keep saying this, a punch in the, like, just a punch to the face.
Kratos, a
And
series of punches in the face.
alternate title for Symphonia, Kratos getting the punch in the face, just multiple not literally only for a few times, but he's getting punched in the face.
And
like,
the box art is
mentally.
everyone punching him in the face.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, Kratos is such an interesting character, but it's like, if you think about, like, now, how would I feel about someone, like, you know, personally in my life like this, like he, like, I think he's fascinating, and it's like intriguing, and like, of course, I really enjoy, like, writing fanfic that explores his, like, inner security, but at the same time, it's like, if I met this dude, I'd probably give him a good slap. You
Yeah,
know?
he's a character you don't want to meet in real life, really, because it's like a character you don't want to deal with. I feel like it's the same with Mythos. Like, I like Mythos a lot, but he's not a character I would love to meet in person.
Yeah, like, yeah, Kratos is definitely someone that's just like, look, because I really enjoy studying psychology, which is part of the reason why I like Kratos so much, is because there's just so much there.
Yeah.
That, it's just so much there of him to, like, pick up apart and such. But, like, so if I was reading, like, I don't know, like a case, a case study with him, I'd probably be like, wow, this is super interesting. But if I actually met the guy, it would definitely be, I would probably already point out, oh, you have issues, and give him a really wide berth. Like, if I saw him walking towards me, I would, like, I don't know, like, give him a lot of space.
Yeah.
And there is, there was also another, oh yeah, and there was also something that was, like, pointed out in their status portraits, was that Kratos and Lloyd, they're both scowling, but Lloyd is so much happier. But, like, if you look at their, like, status images, like, side to side, you can see the similarities. Specifically, like, their jawline and their eyes. But that's, like, it.
Yeah.
And someone was like, what's Lloyd looks so angry in his status image? And I'm like, I don't know. But then again, Lloyd does have a lot to be frustrated about.
He does.
Like, good on him for trying to persevere through, but I mean, his mom's dead, his best friend's going to be offered up as a sacrifice, just a lot of things Lloyd has reason to be unhappy about. And he is pretty hot-headed.
Yeah.
And, oh yeah, and that reminds me, like, you know that scene where they're both, like, stabbing Kavar? That's just, like, mwah. That's, good, you know, good riddance. He had it coming.
He did. Definitely did.
Had himself to blame. I've been there. If you'd have seen it, I bet you would have done the same. And, yeah, and that's just, like, they're just all so interesting, and also leads, like, why Symphonia is personally one of my all-time favorites, is that, to me at least, all of their struggles seem so much more grounded than I've ever seen in any other game.
Yeah.
And so, like, even if there's some fantastical setting, there's still some things of, like, oh yeah, I kind of know what you're going through, like,
if I were in your shoes, I would do the same.
Yeah, like, you see, Sheena, she's, like, kind of she's, like, the lone assassin. She doesn't want to do what she's doing, but she has to because she doesn't want her world as she knows it to end.
Yeah.
She doesn't want it to decline. So, she takes it upon herself to go and be an assassin, and when she's going to, and she's not, you know, very good at it, because she has a big heart. She tries to hide it, but she does have a big heart. And she kind of fails at that, but then she gains friends, but then she loses Corinne. And Corinne's been there, like, since the very beginning.
Yeah.
And that was a gut, like, even if you're not someone who like has lost a pet, if you've lost someone, be it like a breakup or anything, you would feel that pain of like, oh yeah, I know what you're going through. Same thing with like just about everyone. It's like, um, it just felt a lot more grounded. Even and that's what got me into Tales was like how everyone felt so like people like they someone had breathed life into them, and they felt like so
Human.
they all stood on their own, and they were all so unique from
Yeah,
each other.
definitely.
And Simone was a little ambitious in juggling 9 party members.
I think,
And it doesn't
yeah,
always do it that
not
well,
it
but
did the best it could for its time, probably,
yeah,
but like looking up to it now, some characters are more developed than others. When took
yeah,
looked at like Regal and Persea, but and also the relationship between Genus and Colette is a little leaves a lot to be desired.
yeah,
But I feel like it's done pretty good for itself, and
yeah.
we have so much content to discover and to,
Hmm.
as said in the Zealous episode, the Symphonia puts all its cards out, and it's up to you to put your trust in it to see what's actually true.
I never thought of it. That's very insightful. That's really sums up Symphonia really well. And it's just that like, and I'm not like trashing the other Tales games when I say this. It's just that for the other Tales games, to me, they don't come as close as be feeling so um, realistic, for lack of better words, as they do in Symphonia. Then again, I haven't. The only ones I finished are Symphonia, Abyss. No, I have not finished Abyss.
Same here.
Vesperia, and I'm thinking about the halfway point for Berseria, but I know what happens. Abyss, however, like with Luke, and this is I know it's not an Abyss episode, but they do a really good job with Luke. I was impressed, and but even so, it's like look, the combat is clunky in Symphonia,
Yeah.
but it's just that like with the game, it just stuck with me the most because of just all of it. It did things I had like I'm not a very like I'm a pretty picky gamer, and and whenever I tell the story, I'm like initially I hated Symphonia because it was made, but because it was released by Bandai Namco and that same company that does Sword Art Online, and I didn't like how the graphics looked on it. Yeah, and like when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, whatever. This is just gonna be like some dumb anime game, and then I was, and then and then I got obsessed with it, and here we are. I have named my I have a Tumblr and a Twitter account with usernames to one of the characters in that silly anime game.
That's just how it
So
crumbles.
at least that's to me just how much it sticks out to me
Yeah.
is yeah, because of the whole. I think that was one of its like taglines too with Symphonia was that is the RPG that resonates with you.
Yeah, that's why it's called Symphonia. Symphony resonate.
And so yeah, and it's like even it still stuck with me. Like even though I've played other games, like again not many. Like I've played BioWare stuff like Dragon Age, Mass Effect, and all of that. But my mind keeps coming back to Symphonia and I think. And the fact that there are still fans of it today is something I was so excited to see when I got into it really late in like 2018. I was really amazed to see people still making content for this old game. And I think it's just like, even though graphics wise it's aged poorly, and admittedly some of the writing leaves something to be desired that I'm not quite getting into here. But it's just that, but it still resonates with people even today.
Yeah.
And, which I think is like, that's an amazing feat. The only other game I've seen come close to that is Chrono Trigger, which I personally really enjoyed. But, so yeah, it's just like, it was just so awe-inspiring to see that I wasn't alone in like geeking over this game, because usually when I find something, I'm usually like several years too late, and then like there's nothing, and you have to pick through it.
Yeah, I'm you with attorney at this point.
Then eventually resign to like, I have to make everything myself around here, and doing it yourself. But I don't know. It's just like something I just still marvel at, like 2 years later.
Yeah.
That you've like there were people who like even people now. Like my sister isn't like I got her introduced to Tales through Symphonia because I loved it so much, and I was kind of hounding her to play it, and so it wasn't exactly in her. Not exactly. She's not huge on JRPGs like I am, but she did enjoy it because she cried at the ending like I did, and so and obviously it left an impact on her too because I know she started playing the other Tales games,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it's just like when I start like really thinking about it late at night, it's like wow, like you know how at night when you're about to go to bed you start overthinking everything.
Yeah,
Like wow,
definitely.
that's just so amazing how this one game that is so old brings us together.
Definitely. And I feel like that's a poignant note to end on since we're like an hour in.
Yeah. Oh, we're
Yeah, we're an hour
oh
in.
yeah, we're in an hour.
So, Graham, is there anything you want to promote? I know you've done some promoting throughout the podcast, but here's the space to remind everyone.
So, if you're like me and you really like Kratos and you want a glimpse into the Kratos Guilt Express, you can check out my fanfic on Archive of Our Own called Perspective. It is by Seraph Widower / Ghastly Grimoire. Um, I wrote it like a year ago, and I still find myself coming back to it, and I still find I still reread it, and I still think it holds up pretty well, even though I've grown past that. And if you want to see me like talk about live tweet some of the games, or just scream into the abyss, haha, about the other games, or throwing around some jokes, you can follow me on my Twitter at StarofWhittaker. But yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on.
This was a great experience. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. Well, I've been your host, Rayo, and this has been Grim. And that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed and see you next week. Bye.